Hello. It is always impressive when we get to this point in the ALASS Institute agenda because it's late Friday. Here we are in Washington, D.C. It's after 4. And even if you're on the West Coast, it's still later in the day. So that means that we are talking to the truly committed. Impressive, and it's great to be in your company. What we're doing with this session is looking together at what we've talked about, thought about over the past 24, 48 hours. And we are particularly pleased that Deborah, Santiago, and myself are joined by President William Serrata, El Paso Community College, better known to us as a president for Latino Student Success, the chair of Excelencia in Education's board, and one of the 14 institutions of higher education who holds the seal of Excelencia. So you can see why we're really pleased that after so much terrain has been covered in the last 48 hours, that he's with us as we take stock, but mostly important, what we think about what we're going to do with all this information and the time we've invested with each other. So just to give us a moment to reflect, the meeting place for professionals advancing Latino student success in higher education. I think that's how we've marketed these 2 days. So in addition to the ALASS agenda, which we have, we started off with the Seal of Excelencia. Many of you attended that event. It's in our heads as we had the conversation thinking about evidence-based practices, which was the focal point of the Celebración de Excelencia. And then we kicked off today not only with the reminder of why we do this work, our cause is greater than graduation, the how we do this work, which is examples of Excelencia, and Deborah was able to engage 4 representatives in the how and the why and what are the strategies and how do they do it. And from there, we started to break into other sessions, which included, I'm not doing it in the order in which we probably participated, state leadership, advancing equity, a rousing conversation with 2 commissioners for higher education from Massachusetts and Texas. We looked at truth, racial healing, and transformation, a topic that is particularly important and a framework which involves higher education. We considered institutional leadership, advancing equity with a Latino lens. I happened to be peeking over the shoulder and seeing some of the questions that came in the session that followed, which was 25 years of, the future of Hispanic serving institutions post-COVID. And I saw a direct connection because one of the questions that came up in that session was talking about what it is that Excelencia might do with presidents and chancellors related to a more substantive meaning to being Hispanic serving. And in fact, that is the Presidents for Latino Student Success. And then we did have our session on data, which allowed us not only to concentrate on what we care about, what we know is essential for change. And then we come to today, this session right now, which is called Ensuring America's Future. Because in a very real way, that's what Excelencia in Education keeps doing. Our portfolio has points that we hope puts a welcome mat out for each and every one of you, but the aggregate impact of the work that we do, that is what ensures America's future. So with that, having put out some of the titles, having recreated the sequence of some of these things, having in essence put our agenda before us, now we would like to get into a slightly different way of attempting this conversation than we normally do when we gather together in Washington. And that's to anchor it with some of the key things that Excelencia in Education is focusing on. And as we move into hearing from, if in this circle, practitioner, boots on the ground, a leader in a community, our chairman, and then getting to your questions and answers. Deborah, I turn things over to you.
Thanks, Sarita. I guess I'll just say that part of the ALASS Institute agenda really is predicated on kind of a tactical plan that we've been trying to create over the last 16 years with a national audience in mind, knowing has to be grounded in institutional practical program and community and family and students. And to Sarita's point, when she shared our sessions were about data, practice, and leadership. That is the framework that undergirds the Seal of Excelencia. But we've got, I guess I would say, 7 action ways that we try to engage. And I'd love to just share that with you quickly and then hand it over to President Serrata, who day in and day out exemplifies and leads in all of these areas that we are trying to address as a national organization, and hope that that might spur some of the questions and engagement. So if we can focus on that. So as we've tried to figure out how do we design a national acceleration plan for Latinos, we've been trying to listen and learn and engage for the last 16 plus years as an organization and as professionals to figure out how do we create something that hasn't been created. How do we talk about Latinos as an asset to our community, but also the potential and the opportunities that we have? And that's ensuring America's future. We've tried to track the progress to degree completion and measures of that progress. And I hope you all saw 2 months ago, we released Latino College Completion US, and where this is our 4th year time of releasing data state by state, institution overall, about what's happening for Latino student success and the opportunities to examine practices that are helping us get there. We've tried to be advocates and talk about the benefits and opportunities of getting to these completion numbers. We're trying to see what's working, how do you replicate it and bring it to scale with our examples of Excelencia strategies. We've tried to build a community of common cause with Presidents for Latino Student Success, as Sarita mentioned. And we're really trying to increase support as well as accountability for institutions and those who are looking to better serve our community overall. And that's the Seal of Excelencia. So in a nutshell, those are some of our strategies built to try and support you all with the work you're doing, trying to bring voice and attention and scale it up so it's part of a national dialogue overall. I share that and hope that somebody who's been doing all of these things at his institution and as our chair, certainly, Dr. Serrata, President Serrata, can share with us his perspective of what it takes and open it up to conversation. President Serrata.
Thank you so much, Dr. Santiago and President Brown. So let me start with a couple of comments. I think I'd be remiss, and on behalf of the Excelencia board, I'd like to thank Sarita and Deborah and the entire Excelencia team for effectively putting together an engaging 2 days of events, beginning with yesterday's announcement of 5 additional institutions of higher education earning the Seal of Excelencia, followed by Celebración that highlighted 4 outstanding evidence-based practices that were recognized as a 2020 example of Excelencia. And finally, today, a robust ALASS program. Those 5 institutions joined 9 that were recognized last year in the inaugural class of colleges and universities earning the seal. As you heard earlier, I'm incredibly proud that our institution, El Paso Community College, was amongst those 9. I encourage other colleges and universities that are in the audience to embark on the journey of seeking the Seal of Excelencia, which focuses on leadership, practice, and data. And I would remind you that today's events, as well as Celebración, highlighted program sessions and conversations, which also focused on leadership, practice, and data. Amongst those 3 areas, let me say a bit more about leadership via a visionary program that President Brown and CEO Santiago created, which is Presidents for Latino Student Success. There are now 103 presidents and chancellors participating and who represent 151 institutions in 22 states, Washington, D.C., and Puerto Rico. I want to bring to the forefront of impact, of these institutions. These 151 institutions only represent 4% of all colleges and universities in the nation, but they enroll 24% of all Latino students, and they graduate 35% of all Latinx degree completers. So I encourage all of our attendees to consider participating if you're a president. For other participants, please encourage your president to join this network, which is having a significant impact in facilitating Latino student success. So I think those are some of the things that the audience can look at to really focus on what this organization has dedicated itself since its founding well over 15 years ago now. This is the kind of data that these 2 ladies have devoted their careers to ensuring the success, because in today's world, the success of our nation is dependent on the success of this population that we're privileged to serve at our colleges and universities. Intentionality, if I've learned anything from these two ladies, it's intentionality. And so you see the building behind me, and that was an intentional initiative. That is the architecture building at our Valle Verde campus. And that was a partnership between El Paso Community College and one of the very few partnerships that wasn't with Dr. Natalicio and UTEP. We have an incredible partnership, and I heard her session earlier encouraging, and it really was her leadership that said, we will work with the community college. That's leadership that matters. This particular building is in partnership with Texas Tech University, and it was specifically an HSI grant, which allowed us very rarely to have a brick and mortar that allowed us to build an architecture building, because we saw in the data that there wasn't enough Hispanic architects. And this was a very instrumental, and of course we added a couple $1 million to make it look the way that it looks, but it was a very specific and initiative to ensure that we were meeting a need and facilitating success for our community that wanted to be architects, but didn't want to go away to college, go away to university, earn that degree. They can do it right here in El Paso. So those are some of the examples that we look at of initiating that particular success for these students that we're privileged to serve.
So Deborah, some of the comments that are coming in are wonderful. Dr. Serrata, not only are you getting complimented on your building, but the fact that we have constituents who have family members who are interested in architecture. And since we are hearing from wonderful colleagues who are saying that this series of events and this time that you've spent in our company, in each other's company, has been worthwhile. It is a wonderful tickler because we have the team who is saying, and we do have an evaluation. It is going to be, if it's not already, posted in Whova. And so I'm not seeking to diminish the comments, keep them coming, but I do want to do my job, which is to make the team who is doing the magic behind the scene happy and tell you that yes, we do have an evaluation link and we so want to hear from you.
I think in addition, Sarita, to that, we posited a tactical plan. We put together an agenda. We want to hear from you. A question you had in a session, or that was lingering, you didn't get to, or a comment that you'd like to make. This is the time for you all to speak to us directly, and vice versa, because it can inform our thinking and our efforts as we try to do our best to help leverage and bring attention to good work, but also compel the kind of action we know is needed to go forward. So I would just encourage you to, if you have any questions or comments about things you've heard, things that we're missing, to let us know that. And you can do that at any time, but now is the time to hear a little bit from you.
And in that pregnant pause, I will say that for our work, this is sort of the epic climb. This is to put before you, all who have been with us and all who will come to our website and the YouTube channel and look at the pages that will be built, with the kind of hope that has been expressed iteratively in each other's company. I think that this is really where, for us, the poignant moment, maybe, the poignancy, is that we know that ours is a professional community that is able to get energy from each other. And this is the first time that we have tried to do this virtually. We appreciate, Viviana started off the comments by saying it has worked as well as it did when she would come to Washington. We're delighted to hear that at the end of this climb. But we also know that many of you do this work because you've had to since March. You've had to shift all your classes to virtual presentations, and you've had to do many things.
Right.
So we want to be transparent about the fact that this was for us the first, and we will welcome that kind of sharing on a tactical basis of things that were particularly helpful or things that you've tried and maybe have some suggestions. I don't want to take it entirely in that direction, but we really welcome all your feedback.
Right.
Because unfortunately, it's likely, and we're now beginning to get comments, so I'll stop talking, but we are planning, not this moment, but we are already planning 2021.
Right. And I think in that vein, we're getting some good feedback, but I think maybe this is an opportunity to share with folks a little bit of what we'll be doing in 2021 as well to advance this agenda as we go forward, Sarita, right? So, you know, the efforts of yesterday with the CL and examples, we know we have to double down on that. We're so aware that there are programs that are working for our students that are being threatened because of the limited resources that are available and the challenges of this health pandemic and the continual epidemic we have of structural inequities and racism. And I do think as an organization, making sure that we are investing and supporting and bringing attention to what works. It's always been important. It's not been at the national stage the way it needs to be, but I think finding ways to bring investment and support to the work that directly serves our students is going to be key to our strategy and our efforts. We are committed, now that we've got a little more familiarity with the virtual platform, to raise awareness and attention to this good work in hopes that there will be investment and effort that will benefit our students overall. We have our technical assistance institutes. We ended up doing them virtually this year because of the pandemic. And our hope is that we can expand that so there's wider access and opportunity. The last one we had 20 institutional teams join us, thinking about what they can do to transform, to change their strategy and efforts, linking Latinos to the workforce. That's the kind of opportunity that we are seeing is possible with the good work you all are doing, educating and informing us, but we can educate and inform others. So I think that those are just two, but I know we've got a lot of things planned for Presidents 4 and others. Do you want to share a little bit more?
Absolutely. So one of the things that happened in the spontaneous comments, at least they were spontaneous for us, during the announcement event, was to hear those who were acknowledging they are in the second cohort reference that they had visited the campuses of some that were in the first cohort. This is something that Deborah and I have long thought about, and it resonates with some of the comments that are coming in about the upside of doing things virtually, is that you don't have to travel, so you don't have to worry about a travel budget. We would like to do that. We would like to consider, we've only had any effort to bring the Presidents for Latino Student Success together twice. And now we would like to do more of that. Still, time is the hardest thing to come by. So whether you're virtual or you're traveling, it's still getting on the schedule. But I think that the premise being that the presidents in the two cohorts will be able to not only share with each other what they do, how they do it, but we at Excelencia, who are still moving through the very rich information we've gathered, and then thinking about how to curate that for others. The other thing that is happening, the session that Deborah did, where she presented some of the preliminary analysis on 25 years of HSIs, it's a significant policy dimension that since the creation of HSIs, it's been shorthand for a lot of things. And that's part of what we want to unpack. And so what I mean by that is, yes, there is the historical information. There is the analysis that Deborah the team has produced, and it will roll out with much more effort over the next couple of months. But to go back to the question, Deborah, of what are presidents and chancellors going to do? Well, we have 4 Presidents for Latino Student Success among the 14 who are weighing in to say, this is helpful to us. And so we're proposing regional briefings, regional gatherings. When we said this, we thought we might be doing it in person, but there's going to be one in Texas and one in California and one in New York and one in Florida. If it's virtual, then all of us can do all kinds of things together, but we're going to do it. And so we're going to be looking at the regional perspective of these efforts. And a lot of what we've tried to do in terms of the articulation of the network began with program level professionals. That's the longest standing effort at Excelencia, examples of Excelencia. That is what we come from. Those are our roots. That never stops, but how we can take it to scale is the alignment question. So I do want to come back to William. I mean, the notion that you as a peer talking to peers and saying, join us with Presidents for Latino Student Success. Say something about that, because we've had over the course of ALASS, several of you ask, how can I talk to my institutional leader about that? Why don't you share a little bit about what you've been doing colleague to colleague?
Yeah, absolutely. So reaching out to colleagues and encouraging them throughout the state of Texas and then other contacts throughout the nation on the importance of this. Leadership matters. And if you're looking at this data, if you're looking at the evidence-based practices that Excelencia highlights, then I think that it's important that your community and your institution knows that. And the way to display that it's important to you is by participating in Presidents for Latino Student Success. And I'd share that the challenges are many right now, but the work is too important. And I'd remind everyone that at the depths of the Great Recession that started in 2008 to pre-pandemic, there was 12 million new jobs that were created in this nation. Over 99% of them went to individuals with degrees and certificates. Only 80,000 of those jobs went to individuals with a high school diploma or less. So it is incumbent on us to provide that opportunity for these students that we so proudly serve and that we're fortunate to have as a part of our institutions. To have them be a part of that economic recovery is crucial. And so I believe that as a president, that it's important that the institution knows that this is an area of focus for me so that the rest of the institution follows.
Yeah.
I don't know about you, Deborah, but that sounded like a really good final word. What do you think?
I agree. I'll say this, you know what? So grateful for that you've stayed. Please be in touch if we can be helpful. We've got a community of common cause that even in a virtual setting, we want to bring attention to. Thank you for the time and effort you've invested in this and in your work and serving students or wanting to know more about how you can serve them. This is a continual effort to make sure that we don't forget the most precious resource we have, as Sarita says, is our time, but also our people. And if we can add value to your efforts and strategies and bring attention at the national level, that's what we want to make sure to do. So thank you for your time. Please do look out for 2021. There's going to be a lot more information coming out. We're going to keep on finding ways to engage and network with you. So thank you.
Stay strong, stay involved. Gracias.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.